everyone and welcome to a new video. Today is going to be focused on one of your questions about art style, how to stay coherent, how to find it, how to find your very own path as an artist. Mida asked, how do you stay true to your path as an artist and not diverge to all kind of other things? I'm always curious about and want to do everything. For example, although I love nature and watercolor and I should probably stick to that, I also dabble in urban sketching, drawing, teaching, graphic design. And I want to answer that question because most people have a misconception of what art style actually is. So very simply put, and if I stay at that, the video is going to be 2 minutes long. Art style is just the way you do things. That's it, guys. I mean, it was nice talking to you. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye! I'm not even kidding. It's really that simple. Art style, it's just how you do things. You develop your style, a very specific style, while you work. So it's not something instantaneous. It's not like if you're starting out a career or if you're starting out to draw or paint, maybe it's something you've always did. Maybe you started as a kid or a teenager, and in that regard, you're in luck because you already went through all the phases and you probably already a few years later have developed some kind of style. But if you're an adult and pick up painting later on in your life, you're not going to have a style right away. It's going to take years. And that's normal. That really shouldn't discourage you from pursuing art as a hobby or a career. It's just the way it is. Now, of course, you can tweak your style, but that goes with the work. For instance, if you're into realism at some point of your life, you might want to develop your skills, to paint better, to know proportions better, to draw from life better, just to develop and hone your skills. Because skills are different than style. Many people can do a portrait. I mean, I can't, but most artists can. Two different artists will do a portrait of the same person in very different styles and very different visions. You could go very colorful or very muted, black and white, hyper-realistic, just realistic, almost realistic, expressive. Oh god, I'm overexposed. You don't have to worry too much about naming your style. Like, is it realism, is it surrealism, it is whatever else. Usually that comes with time, and it's more art critics that will decide that for you. In a very short way, art style is just the way you do things. It's not just about the way you do it, but it also, and I think that's the most crucial and a thing that is often lacking from most artists I see on social media and on YouTube, so not in galleries, but like the growth of it. You need a theme. As an artist, you have the unique ability to show your personal vision of the world. Now, the world is extremely complex. You can potentially work on anything that piques your interest. In my case, I'm mostly interested in the impact of humanity on the environment, and so I decided to work on trash and nature and to juxtapose those two, but that is my personal vision and way of talking about it. I'm not saying I'm unique in that way. There are many artists who have the same theme, who work on objects and nature, or nature and trash. So this is something that is a very contemporary theme because it's a very contemporary issue. But everyone has a different way of doing things. So I tend to go with very high chromas. I'm realistic but not hyper-realistic. I do things the way I do them because I'm unique in that way. You might want to work on other contemporary issues, but it doesn't have to be depressing. It can be anything. It can be political, certain aspect of society, landscapes, flowers or whatnot. In order to make them uniquely yours, it's going to ask you a little bit more work and thinking. Like, why are you interested in landscapes? Is it the space? Is it the light? Is it just being outside? Try to incorporate what draws you specifically to that theme into your artwork. And this is how you can develop a very specific style. Does that mean that once you have your style, you're good to go and you're going to work on that for 20 years? Probably not. I have been a professional artist in the sense that I've been living from my artwork and creativity for 15 years now, and I have changed 4 times. And that's quite normal. In your career as an artist, or if you look at art history, for instance, if you take Kandinsky, which is one of my personal favorite artists, modern artist, he started in a very naive style. That was very Russian, so to speak, so figurative with lots of black and colors. And then slowly he moved into abstraction, but he had different phases of abstraction as well. So he started with something more expressive and then got tighter with age until it looked almost organic. Now, this is just one example, but you can take any artists and they go through phases. Picasso is the same. I don't really like Picasso, not his art, and even less his personality, but everyone knows him, so it's a good example. And he had color phases. You might have heard about his blue and his pink phase. He had a cubist phase, he had an expressive phase, and so on. So it is normal to change during your life because you're going to change as a human being. So your art style will evolve with you as a human. I feel like if you've been doing the same thing for 20 years, you're probably doing it wrong. It makes more sense to really try to incorporate your thoughts and your life into your art, and this is going to make your art more honest, more authentic, and ultimately more interesting. So the next point is really important if you're trying to sell your artwork. You want to stay coherent in the way you present your work. It doesn't mean that everything you do in your studio has to be coherent. I have enough examples in my own practice and in my own studio of things that do not fit with the rest of what I put on social media, like studies or playtime or whatnot. But when you try to sell something, you have to stay coherent because people like to put you into small boxes. So they will see you as that person who enjoys putting nature onto trash, or that person who loves to work only in blues, or that artist who likes huge black and white, abstract, gestural paintings. So in that regard, when you're trying to sell your artwork, it's good to stay coherent in the way you present it. Certain artists work in very different styles, like they might do big abstract work and then landscapes, and they kind of want to sell both. Now, if you're in that very specific case, I think it would be best to have 2 websites, 2 social medias, and so on. One for one type of work, so the abstract ones, and one for your landscapes. You can develop a customer and art collector base for each style, because people who are interested in landscapes will not be interested in large abstract works in general. So it's going to be harder for you to sell both if you mix both. So best to kind of keep them apart. Coherent doesn't mean you have to use just one media. If you know my work a little bit, you know I work in sculptures, watercolors, and most recently oil paintings. And you can do that, but you have to stay coherent on something else. In my case, it's mostly theme and colors. The idea is really to try to stay true to yourself in the sense that you focus on what interests you first, you do whatever you like, you try to dig deep into your vision and so on, and then you take a step back and look at your work and kind of decide what goes with what, if it can be showcased together, or if certain things just should be kept for yourself and not be shown to the world. Which brings me to my next point. Playtime and studies, you do not have to show them. Now, we all have playtime artworks, you know, things where you just unwind, doodle something, maybe buy a new medium that's just something gestural. For me, it's mostly that, but for you, it might be something else. So my normal artwork is very tight, but sometimes I want to be more gestural, you know, take a big sheet of paper and just have fun with pastels or oil sticks. And I don't do something that is pretty or I don't like the result. I just like the process process. Sometimes it helps me get into the mood, or I just want to lay down colors. So it's just for myself, it's playtime. And I think every artist needs that type of stuff, but you do not have to show everything you do in your studio to the world. So if it just doesn't fit whatever you do in your normal life, if for instance, again, I'm going to take always the same examples. But if you're an abstract painter, but when you go travel, you do landscape paintings because it's fun for you, then maybe don't show that on your social media just because it's not going to be coherent. It's still fun for you. You should do it. You should indulge in whatever is fun for you art-wise. Be aware of not mixing everything together. Again, you can do whatever you want, but when you start to build up a portfolio with the intent to sell whatever you're doing as an artist, then it's important to be coherent. If you're doing it just for fun, it doesn't really matter, you know? I think being coherent is a bit overrated most of the time. We're not coherent in our daily lives, so you should not put too much pressure on yourself if this isn't your job. So really, if it's your job, then yes. If you're just a hobby artist and you just do whatever you want, then just go with that. Now, the next point is a little bit controversial. I have a bit of a pet peeve when people tell you to get out of your comfort zone. I feel like that's terrible advice for artists. Art is difficult enough. You have a vision, you want to express something specific, you're already struggling with that, you know, you're kind of pushing your artworks, you're trying new things, you have a color idea, but it usually doesn't work out, so you end up trying to save your artwork. If you're a very fast painter, then you might go through 20, 30 paintings before you make one that you actually like. So doing art is already quite difficult. It's not comfortable. At the very least, you need to do things that interest you, and that is what I call your comfort zone. If you like working on rainbows, do that. If you like working in black and white, do that. If you love portraits, nature, landscapes, abstraction, realism, hyperrealism, whatever tickles your fancy, do that. But do it well. Push yourself to always improve. So this is where it might get uncomfortable, and this is also why there's such a controversy on what does it even mean to get out of your comfort zone. I always say that as an artist, you have to be confident enough to actually do what you have in mind, confident enough to show it to the world, but at the same time, you need to have enough doubt as to critically assess your work and see if it's shit or not. You have to be confident but unsure at the same time. If you don't have those two, you will never improve as an artist, because you have to believe in yourself to do art, but at the same time you have to be critical about your art to improve. When working and when in the process, you have to believe in yourself. Be like, I can do this, I will do this, finish the artwork. And then you can look at your artwork in a few days, in a few months, sometimes a few years from now, and then you're like, that's shit. Look at it and be like, oh, I could improve this, or this could be better, this could be more technical, more clear, the colors weren't that great, maybe I should get better color mixing, maybe my proportions aren't right, and so on. So always play on that fine balance of I'm great and I suck, and you're going to be all right. Last but not least, don't take all of this too seriously. Doing art should stay fun for you, especially if it's just a hobby. Sure, if it's going to be your job, it's going to be painful at times, but it's still a job that is difficult enough to make a living out of it. So if you're not enjoying doing art, then I personally feel it's kind of pointless. When I work on my sculptures or my paintings, there's always a phase where I feel like I'm saving the artwork because I made poor decisions and I hate it, and then I just have to kind of save it. But I enjoy that struggle. It's a fun struggle. It's not something that I dread. It's like, okay, we have a problem, we have to solve it. So struggling in art is not something painful, it is fun. And I feel like if you remember that doing your artwork should always be fun, you should be fine. And this concludes a very long answer to a seemingly simple question. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have watched until the end, please leave a plant emoji into the comment section so I can know who is actually watching and listening to me for so long. And why a plant emoji? Because there are plants in my studio, so why not? I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye! Oh oui, ça c'est bien les gratte-gratte derrière l'oreille. C'est bien les gratte-gratte derrière l'oreille. Oui. Oh, c'est bien sous le menton aussi. Oh là là.